Welcome to the PLZ Vault, sponsored by Arnold Clark Rewards.
I think, when we talk about it as well, is like I was thinking the other day, there's these great, we should have Scottish football seasons, April, winter and all that. We should have the season of the league reconstruction. And we move into the season of let's bring through young players. These arguments that we...
Let's stop playing in January because
let's
it's really
have a
cold.
window. There's these tropes that just keep coming up. And I actually chuckle about them because in many ways, everything, these controversies that come up all the time, the actual answer to all of them is nothing will change.
Yeah.
We all get really animated about it. And then suddenly, well, what happened to us? Just the same.
Well, why is it not going to change?
Because it's a simple thing. It's because people that have the votes don't want it to change. It's as simple as that.
The voting system was structured.
The voting system was structured.
Almost impossible.
It's impossible to change it. And the great thing is, I laugh all the time.
Vladimir Putin, I think it was, like, people don't remember. It was a young fella, like he suggested it to them.
I think the initial paper was brought by Romanov and then implemented by Putin.
The great thing is like Doncaster, who Stephen, aforementioned Stephen, I call the human pinata. Yeah. Right, he gets the blame for everything, then drives down on a Friday night to Norwich or wherever he lives and leads his best life, and then comes back up on a Monday and gets it. And it's absolutely nothing to do with him, of course, because it's the clubs. He just implements what the clubs want.
Yes,
and the clubs. They don't want to change. The only good thing I think is, in this case, there's been a slight wee tweak, and it looks as if there might be a wee bit of movement down the league, and I think that's a good thing, because although people say is 42 teams is too many, in my wee journeys over the last 3 or 4 years, I've seen teams that would be a real benefit to a 42 team SPFL who would come in with money, ambition.
Better run than other clubs.
Better run.
But that's what's happened now.
The East Kilbride will come in with money and that. Yeah. And the Lowland League is, even if you go with the Lowland Leagues have got really strong teams like Trinent and Lithgow will come in. And even if you go down to the West of Scotland League, walking like Talbot and teams like that.
Spartans are a good run club. All of these clubs that have...
But there's no
Spartans are brilliant.
But 10 years ago they weren't...
No great support.
No, I know, but the problem is, are you discriminating against clubs that don't have a huge support, or should you still allow clubs in the meritocracy to progress? They might not have a great support, but can they progress and still run a successful business?
That's what I would say.
You do allow the meritocracy. It's like, holy guacamole, are we going to give ourselves more mouths to feed? The problem is, so that's more than 40. They're adding clubs to the senior set.
No, I accept that. That's why I'm asking the question.
That's the last thing we need.
Yeah,
so you're trying to the pie. It's the same. The pie's the same size. So you're trying to cut it into even more slices. For goodness sake, you should only have about 24 senior clubs, and the rest need to fend for themselves and try to become one of those 24 senior clubs. You don't want to. It's like bottom feeders. I'm afraid to say it. They exist in the central funds for what? For the sake of 400, 500 people to go along.
Well, there is an argument. I know, and I'm not going to isolate you on this because it's a point that I think is very valid that you're making there, and a lot of people share your view on it. Let's deal with Andrew's point. I don't think it's radical on the basis that there are clubs over the last 100 years, Alison, in their structure, who've basically lived for the handouts. That's how they survive.
It's an argument you could level at a lot of clubs when if you take Celtic Rangers out of the equation and the finances that draws in. There's a lot of clubs that there'd be an argument that would say that they benefit the whole stream all the way down. I think that's just the reality of Scottish football, that there's so little money available that what you get has to be distributed to so many people.
But should be distributed. I think I understand where Andrew's coming from as far as a professional structure and the size of the leagues that operate at the absolute professional sense. But should we not be in a situation where we say to ourselves, listen, yeah, we know there's handouts, but it gives everyone the chance to play in this structured league. It gives employment. It gives you the chance to aspire to greater heights.
Yes and no. I think there's got to be enough to go round as well. I think you have to be realistic about how much there is to go.
Well, there is enough to go round. There is enough to go round, Hugh.
I think I'm for expansion, and I take on board the things about the pie getting cut smaller. But what I've seen when I go around, Andrew, is see the teams. There would be teams that would die off because the pie would get bigger and they would drop out the leagues. There would be teams that would do that, and we've seen teams drop out the league and out, and are not going to get by.
Brecon, Cowdenbeath,
East Stirling, Berwick Rangers, etc. I don't see them getting back in the league. But what you've got below the surface is the clubs bubbling away, paying good wages to players, probably paying league wages to players, earning money, being well run. I would say Clydebank, for example, would be the classic one for me. I've seen Clydebank a couple of times this season, apart from the playing side, which is excellent, really good to watch, is if you go along there on a Saturday, there's 800 to 1,000 people. The club's run by the supporters. It's they took 2,500 fans to Hibs, and you're saying to yourself, they'd be a huge benefit to Scottish senior football, and that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Now, there's other clubs.
You've got to get up. I mean, there is a pyramid. It's a terrible pyramid.
It's
system.
a terrible pyramid.
That's the problem. If you win the Lowland League and you win the Highland League, you should automatically go in. The other team shouldn't have got a Doug's chance. The team that finishes the bottom of League Two.
Yeah, but that's not just the bottom end of it. The top end of it's rigged as well, Andrew. And we also sustain a club with a support that at the absolute top, and I'm being kind to them, is 1,200 fans in Livingston. Their business plan doesn't equate to being unbelievably profitable, but they still have a manager and a group of players who punch well above their weight and achieve at the top end of the system.
What about the Celtic Underground exclusive this week about what's changing in Reconstruction?
You're turning into Tam Cowan. He used to come on the show and say, "You'll never believe it, I'm on the BBC this week and I have blah, 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 blah." Tell us about the Celtic Underground.
Can I tell you about the Celtic Underground exclusive this weekend?
Which is what?
So Celtic are getting rid of their B team, right?
Yes.
There's going to be partnerships. I don't know if it's made it into the wider kind of sphere.
Yeah.
So every club will give five of their players will be loaned to a partner club in the Championship. So say for instance Celtic align with Queen's Park, so they'll give them their best 5 young players, and they will be playing for them. They're not becoming Celtic's B team and anything like that, but this is the way. It's almost like getting the B operation in the sense of what they wanted was what you have in Holland, what you have in Belgium. The B teams play at the second tier. They play at the second tier. So the best young players for the Premiership will now be playing in the second tier.
Yeah.
5, and you get 5 each. You can recall these players. I don't know how this is going to work. They've almost got dual registration. That wasn't my exclusive, it was my colleague Brian Gilmore, but they've almost got dual registration, so you can play.
What happens to the rest of the team? If you're only farming out 5, what happens to the rest of that squad?
There are also every other team that you're not. If the Championship teams, doesn't matter if whether you're partnered, whoever you're partnered with, you can take 5 of their players. You can take 1 player from another club.
Now, again, Hugh, this is the great thing. It reminds me, I don't know if you ever remember a movie called Convoy. I think Chris Christopherson was in it.
Rubber Duck.
Yes, it was. It was in the 70s. And it only ever happens when Andrew's on the show, right? And eventually what happened is Chris Christopherson is riding across America in a truck, right? And he's riding along, not for any great principle or reason, right? But all of a sudden, on the CB, the truckers all start following him. And then eventually when the TV cameras come and the radio, they then end up asking all the people why they are on this convoy. And every trucker gives a different angle on it, right? So suddenly, from driving along for maybe one reason, it's then mushroomed out onto several different reasons. And this is where Andrew takes it. I'm talking about, what about the changes for the league and a chance to change the Premier League? He's talking about B teams now, and we're off at a tangent again.
Wonderful. This is one of the this is the biggest change.
But it's just wonderful. I was just thinking, I'm I'm 70 next week, Andrew, and Tess Patricia MacDonald, my granddaughter, wrote me a short story about PLZ, right? Which ended in me doing the show and being teleported to New York. And I thought that was absurd until the last 3 minutes. Her story is much more realistic and possible than the way we've gone. Exactly.
Well, and the point I'm about to make, the point I'm just about to make to you is quite simply, I think the SPFL and I think the other clubs, and we all know the 11-1, the SPFL have blown it because quite simply, I want to see more teams in the top flight. I really do. And I understand this whole greedy self-interest about 4 Old Firm games and the pressure from Sky and maybe Premier Sports and all these. They want the big games. I get that. But there has to be a situation, Andrew, where we do not go through this relentless boredom every year of these constant games and not giving clubs a chance to flourish in a bigger league.
Like Teflon Don, as you might call Doncaster, as he's sometimes nicknamed.
Yeah.
He gave an interview to Stephen this week for Nutmeg. Another plug.
Yes, absolutely.
It was a good interview as well. But he's old tropes, he's old kind of perennials. That he said people tell you that what they want is not what they'll actually pay to see. So they want best against best. So they don't want to lose 2 Edinburgh derbies for Wraith Rovers against Falkirk, which is probably a bad example because that'd be a well attended fixture.
Yeah.
Or Livingston against anybody really.
And by the way, we'll put up Andrew's Twitter account and his email at the end of this.
No, I just mean in terms of obviously they give 3 sides to Celtic, Rangers, Hearts and Hibs, so they do get, I suppose, decent attendances at these home games. But so you don't want to lose the top end, the highest profile clubs.
Nobody's asking them to lose it. This is the other thing about it. Nobody is asking.
You came up with a really good system, which I can't remember.
Yeah, but nobody's asking. Well, listen, Gordon Smith had originally brought it out in 1872. Gordon, to his credit, and I admire Gordon for it when he was the chief executive of the SFA for it. He had various structures that would work, that would still allow 4 games for everybody.
Do you mean the 2 12s going into the 3 8s? I was quite for that because I thought it'd been quite refreshing.
Yeah, I mean,
who voted it down? Stuart Gilmour and Roy McGregor, because they said the league splitting after 22 games wasn't enough games for you to decide that you're down among the dead men.
Yes, and this is the point. You know, while Gordon had a good structure that he'd put forward, and many others have come up with various other things that accommodate these 4 games that everybody is definitely saying must happen in derbies, which is fine. What I'm saying is, let's get the expanded league for a number of reasons to take away this real cutthroat where you're talking about tropes. I'm sick of listening to managers 2 weeks in August saying we just want to avoid relegation in this league. So automatically, if your mindset is I just want to avoid relegation, Alison, then you're saying automatically in your team we have to negatively start by looking at don't lose games, can't play youngsters, going to play a certain way. You know, that's why I look and I say to myself, we should be embracing people like Stephen Robinson, embracing people like John McGlynn, embracing football that you want to see. We're going to talk about, some great games that we've witnessed down through the years. You want to see entertaining football. I mean, I was at Kilmarnock against Ross County last week. Mother of God, 36 minutes into it, not one chance against the goalkeeper on either side. Not one chance. I'm not even talking about an effort on goal. It was dreadful. And these are 2 teams who are battling to avoid relegation. They're trying to stay up.
I don't know what you do, though, to avoid that kind of mentality of we just don't want to go down. I think whatever the setup is, you'll have teams that their remit will be the whole. But
there'll be less of a percentage. It's almost like the implementation of VAR. They said it's not going to solve everything. It's just going to solve a greater percentage of the mistakes.
You will still have teams.
You'll still have it. You're right.
We just want to survive in the top flight. I think ultimately what you want are as many live games as possible, games that have tension and meaningful games. You want as
top 10
many.
would give you that. They would give you that because everybody would be playing for something right up to the end.
That's what you want, I think.
Even if you're playing 4 times a season, people say they're bored. I mean, the Scottish top flight, Scotland has got the lowest automatic dropout rate in terms of relegation of any of the top 25 leagues in Europe. What does that tell you about the protectionism? It's also got one of the worst differentials between, it's 3.5 to 1 in terms of how much, it's about 3.5 to 4 that you earn between the first and the last team. England is 1.5 to 1 in the sense of how much. So Celtic are taking too much at the top. It wouldn't necessarily make a lot of difference. I don't know why they don't say, by the way, we'll chop 1.5 million. How much difference does it make them? It's not even Lassen Boswell, you know what I mean?
The whole thing is run. You see, it's like that breaks the way the club's run. The whole club is run, and let's have a look at the bottom line here. Let's have a look at the bottom line.
The biggest problem is that
you want to make more competitive teams to play against in a way.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying you give away this whole idea. There's been a big debate in some of the sites I'm on about returning to the 50-50 gate split. Good luck with that.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. But the biggest problem we have in this situation, and I don't know how they change it, and it probably will take a number of changes at boardroom level in a number of clubs, but we have a dictatorship. That's it in a nutshell. In the SPFL, we have a dictatorship which allows that 11-1 to survive, which kills off any chance of change, and it kills off any chance of clubs making a legitimate proposal on a structure that would benefit more and more clubs. The dictatorship kills that off completely.
It's a funny dictatorship, but Peter, because sometimes
11-1 is the dictatorship.
No, but sometimes it plays for Celtic, and as happened under Gordon Smith's plan, sometimes it plays for Ross County. It's 11-1.
Yep.
It's a weird
because Celtic were huge motivators. Huge motivators. Everybody was describing it as Peter Lawwell's plan. They were the ones that were wanting it changed. We'll give to no ostensible benefit of Celtic. They said, right, we'll get on board, we'll get it changed. And 11-1 was St Mirren, Stuart Gilmer, and Ross County, Roy McCormick. As I remember at the last minute as well, it was quite a dramatic.
I remember it being really at the last minute too.
I think it was Roy McGregor kind of changed the heart overnight, because I think I interviewed Gilmer and he was implacably opposed to it. And you understand, and all these people talk about splits and a greater split. I mean, the split we've got now isn't too bad, because can you imagine if we'd split after 22 games like that? Like Hibs. I mean, Hibs could well finish third, but after 22 games, Hibs would have been in the bottom of any split. If you had a split.
Hibs and Hearts.
Well, the Hearts thing is...
Hearts stayed there.
The Hearts thing is incredible, because if you talk about the start of the season, having a predictable season, you say, not only did Hearts finish in the bottom 6, but it's reasonable to deduce that the Hearts board thought not only we finishing in the bottom 6, but we could be in a relegation battle, because that's the only reason you fire a manager with 4 games to go. You're not firing them because, because if they thought, listen, we're in the bottom 6, let's suck up, let's go and look for another manager, we'll sack him at the end of the season, blah, blah, blah. They now are sitting. I mean, I think the Hearts story is almost underreported, isn't it? They say that board has now got the fear.
Yes, absolutely.
They're operating their wage bill. It's between it's like 5 and 4 times all the teams that are in that bottom tier. I mean, they talk about Celtic Rangers and these differentials. Like Hearts and Aberdeen have something similar to about half of the league.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. The change you can give us your view on it, and whether you think it needs to change. The voting system, I certainly think, needs to change. But, of course, when you get a situation where people want more clubs in the top flight. Do you agree with that? What about the lower leagues? Would you like to change that? Andrew, certainly.
I'm not going to get rid of everybody, but I just think
no, if you gain power, Andrew,
you just want to banish them all to Siberia. Have a division
Madame
4.
Guillotine will be coming out.
Yes, I am.
My revolution.
I fear for the future of Scottish
Andrew's
football.
going to do my on the road. He's just going to go around all clubs in Scotland with a padlock.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's probably one of our T-shirts.
And a body
We
bag.
must stop Andrew Smith getting control of Scottish football, or it's curtains for us all.